All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Daisy Ozam, and I'm here to do a presentation on open source environmental technologies and tools for District 10 and beyond. So, just a little bit of background about me. I've been working in public health, environmental health, tech, data science for the past like 10, going on 13 years now. It's like my 13-year anniversary working in the community, starting out as a young person, doing pure mentorship, pure health advocacy, then moving on to work with different departments and organizations for local, state, and national health initiatives, and then going on to develop tools for the community, open source tools to respond to some of the issues that our community is like facing with environmental justice. So this is going to be a very interesting presentation about the tools, what are the updated issues in environmental justice, and I may have like a demo, multiple demos, but there's going to be at least a demo for you regarding this technology and how it works and how we can use this for our community. Okay, so let's keep on going here. So let's talk about new chemistry. So basically, new chemistry, we are here to provide what we call hyperdimensional quantization tools. So quantization, which I'm going to talk about in detail, is like a specific, not theory, but force that allows you to access an element, a compound in a specific space-time continuum that allows you to edit the standard model of particles within that element or compound, to edit its RGB, red, green, blue color spectrum that allows you to edit its electron configuration, etc. So one of the things with the quantization force is we're working in chemistry, physics, and electrochemistry, that trifecta, in order to access the quantization space. They would call it the Higgs boson space, right? But it's just basically a space wherein you have access to a more complex reality of whatever chemical you're working with, whatever element, being that air, being that water, being that soil. Okay. So we're here doing exposing different historical tools that have been hidden from us. The war for specific artifacts, which are science books from the 1600s and 1700s that belonged to Black and Brown Indigenous people, bringing that forth, doing community education, and also like workforce development support. Like that looks like cataloging and tracking what's going on in the media, what's happening in the regulatory bodies, providing that to the community and making sure that they are front and center, getting the specific certificates and training that they need to be of use within the economy and within the environmental sector with like the given changes that are happening. Okay. So just some of the historical influences, for some of our work, working with floating points, working with astronomy, working with the configuration of planets, working with satellites. A lot of our work is based off of Benjamin Banneker. So I will say this, I spent a lot of time actually visiting these historical sites, traveling to DC, traveling to Virginia, Maryland, Baltimore, traveling to the Mason Dixie line, having a lot of fun, going to go visit their place of living, learning so much about them, going to the National Archive, going online to the archives as well, which is also like a really cool experience, finding historical scientific documents on there, and then being able to put them in specific programs and tools for our community to use. So one of the tools that's like really heavy in our work is Harriet Tubman, her work on spatial recognition, understanding tides of water, understanding astronomical transits and how they impact nature around you, how they actually impact the darkness of the night for safety and travel, how they impact like the height of water when you're trying to cross over different rivers. And Benjamin Banneker, he spearheaded a lot of this work with his work regarding Ellicott City. So some of you guys that have been to or may not have been to Benjamin Banneker, his cabin, it's out in the Maryland area. It's beautiful. It's his original cabin, pristine and preserved with his artifacts like still there. Benjamin Banneker is like a investigator. That's what I love about him. He used his mind in such a powerful way. He talked about mapping DC from the heavens. Washington DC. He built Washington DC, and if you understand the architecture of DC, it's so intricate, but it's so beautiful. It's an amazing city. But he mapped it from his dreams. He was very powerful and very much into using higher neural networks and higher levels of his consciousness. He then helped to create the first accurate almanac because people were playing around with the concept of the almanac because of different historical books that they were getting from different indigenous communities and cultures that they were then kidnapping and putting into slavery. Benjamin Banneker was one of those people. So there was something that was going on in a place called Ellicott City due to like poor urban planning and an inaccurate almanac from somebody that was like building off of his work. The city kept on having floods because it was built in the wrong place. So that's where they decided to develop the Ellicott Tunnel to kind of stop those floods. And there was constant floods until they utilized this tool from Benjamin Banneker and edited, the design of their city, which is amazing. And he accurately predicted rotations per second, which is the only reason why we have the computer today. And because of his work, with rotations per second, creating the first clock that's still around. That's the only reason why we have the CPU, something called clock time, and the power supply unit that all works together to make sure that your computer can work in a specific manner that will then allow for you to run like computer programs. So I think it's like super cool that we're getting all of this like historical information because of the work of two really powerful Black astronomers, scientists. So let's talk about some of the current impacts to environmental justice that folks are going to be learning about. So I take it upon myself to read several dozens of news stories every day. Um, from the time that I wake up because so much is moving so fast. I check regulatory sites. I check um, different databases. I check different sites that are publicizing ongoing litigation and ongoing program budgets, things like that. Because sometimes litigation is a little bit different from budget requests. So tracking all of that to see what's going on. So some of the key themes that we've seen is a chemical shortage. So there was a chemical supply wasted for people that were trying to run like certain clinical trials, trying to develop certain chemical compounds for material science, or to extend the medical supply that we have, or to extend the supply of chemicals for water treatment and air treatment and soil treatment. So then what happened was there was the use of certain molecular entities that were mined from space to try to further the potency of those chemicals, and it actually backfired. And there's a lot of chemical recalls right now and a chemical shortage. And then also an air tampering. So there is the tampering of air quality through the specific use of a drone network to blast chemicals into the sky, PFAS and molecular entities, in order to create what would we call a molecular pool lagoons, I would call them. So they would be like lagoons of shattered air and molecular like portals in the air that are beyond trigonal and beyond bipyramidal. For those of you guys that understand the separ, it's a specific concept in chemistry that just lays out, the geometric formation of a chemical in order to understand its ability to have trigonometric and other calculus like effects with other compounds, right? That would allow for two chemicals to kind of meet, and at the angle that they meet, what compound do they create? Try to predict that. It's called the separ. So they were trying to utilize a specific like neuromonitoring technology, and because of that neuromonitoring technology, it required a specific chemical being in the bloodstream of an individual in order for them to produce or facilitate frequency modulation on them to be able to monitor like their brain waves and their thoughts and things like that. And it created a lot of violence and a lot of havoc. And it's unfortunate that there's like elected officials, people in office that, kind of use their position to run that technology. It was just a group of families that were using it for their corporate gain, and it tampered with air quality. And one of the things that got created with this is the Rockdale fires, how that explosion went so far that it was killing like public officials, killing the scientists and whatnot. So another impact that's been going on is the soil and phytochemical quality and access because of the air tamper. That's like one of the things is blasting those molecular entities and those heavy chemicals into the sky created like molecular like lagoons of shattered air that were basically like warp fields that can impact air travel, that can impact a specific physics, that will require you to have to change circuitry, that will require an edit to the sensors that we use for air quality management. So because of that, we do have a system where we can project frequencies at the grid in specific areas and like reduce, the harmful effect of a chemical in a way that I'm going to show you in a minute. But it did impact the soil quality, and then from there, it impacted like the phytochemical quality, and then the accessibility of the phytochemical, wherein individuals were finding out that the phytochemical was not able to go through specific reactions or titration engagements in the laboratory because they were binded with the molecular entity that's actually, very interesting. It's violating the octet rule. It's violating Avogadro's constant. It's a very interesting time in chemistry, and we're right there at the forefront of it, trying to put out information and news about what's been going on. So I did write a book about chemistry that I want to put out. I'm like 200 pages in. I'm just like rewriting a bunch of different like equations and stuff like that for folks. I'm also redoing like circuitry for folks, like showing folks this is how you're gonna have to change your circuitry to combat what was like done as well to the electrical grid, which is where we get into utility jacking. So illegally accessing the electrical grid for crypto mining injection. Like literally, as I was talking about this, they had like a huge outage at a community organization. They could not provide services for 4 weeks for folks because of what was going on. And then it was unfortunate, like they cut the budget for their programming. So there was a bunch of people like left in limbo after that happened because like their all the CPUs for their computers were shattered collectively because they were on the same server and they tunneled in through the internet and the electrical grid to perform crypto mining injections, and it backfired, right? So that's like one of the things that we're combating and trying to like help the community with through like our cybersecurity like work. Then another thing is like accessing like water supply for clinical trial testing, which came up in Oakland unfortunately. And then as well as that, because of the chemical shortage, the different like lead in the pipes, things like that, and nather rising, creating like really harmful chemicals, forever chemicals that violate the octet rule, Avogadro's constant, and are impossible to, work within the laboratory. So this is like the current crisis going on in environmental justice, and then because of that, the utility grid, it like dampening the server power, the hydroelectricity, all of that, and impacting, some of our the tools that we have in place. So then we have the radiation and space changes. So because of the use of high-powered radiation, the forever chemicals, and then particle accelerators, as well as consistent space travel, like that's not regulated, like people launching rockets so they can launch like unregulated satellites into the sky for their own Starlink network, right? Those were causing like molecular portals within the environment that were allowing negative photon photon interactions that were actually impacting the body and the meridian field on the planet that impacts soil quality and air quality, and creating molecular destabilizations that are then rippling back and creating all of these effects, right? So that's just one of the things that we're going to have to look out for. And then, what does that look like for public health, which we're talking about now, right? So these are some of like the concepts that we are focusing on in our work. Spiral valence, right? So what is a spiral valence? I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but instead of using the a valence of a chemical in its circular form. You use it in its spiral form. And this is where we get into proof of chemicals being on servers. And we see this with synthetic chemicals versus phytochemicals. They're not on the same server, meaning that they don't have the same orbital configuration, even though it may be a similar chemical. They don't have the same octet rules. They don't have the same Avogadro's constant, but they're the same chemical, meaning that they exist within the space-time continuum, but they are operating on different commands of the space-time continuum of which they originate in. Then space travel, right? People are mining chemicals from space, but what dimensions are they coming from? Those chemicals that are flowing into this Milky Way galaxy and into this solar system, and they're mining these different chemicals, where are they coming from? And also, what space-time continuum are they ascribed to? And this is actually where we get into like some of the deep comedic arts. This is like what they're talking about, like with the New and the Geb, these people that were basically blue back black, and they were saying that they actually have specific physics that can edit this space-time continuum, and this is how you can do it, right? Using specific trigonometric factors that we have seen displayed through Hippocrates, Pythagoras, and different white societies that went into these places and took science books and things like that and edited them. I study languages, so I was able to translate a few of them, and it created like a huge war where individuals were actually uploading me to translation tools, trying to like use me to translate. They were sneaking into my home, trying to clinically test on me. It's just like studying. This is something I've been into since I was a kid. I read a lot of books when I was a child. When I was younger, my first job was working in the library, studying the Dewey Decimal System. So I had the opportunity to like get my hands on different books, studying the archive, working with the librarian. She's showing me these things when I was like 10 years old, and I took like a liking to it. Then getting on the internet, right? Like one of the first kids getting on like AOL, and like them having to rewrite the algorithms for solitaire because I like exhausted all of them playing all their different games and the configuration of cards and how to win. And so that's just like my early history on the internet. A lot of people like know me. So spiral valence, right? So then also we have radial probability distribution, which we'll talk about. And that's the ability for a valence to expand or contract. And the way that we're seeing this now is in actually alcohol quality and supply. There were several celebrities, A$AP Rocky, Kevin Hart, that actually got a batch of bad alcohol that was being sold off because it was deactivated. So the alcohol actually had no ability to impact your biochemistry to give you the effect of being inebriated or what we call drunk. And they sold it off to different celebrities, and there's currently legal battles going on because of that. So then we have the separ, which I talked about, geometric angles in chemical elements and compounds. And what does it look like to actually turn those off, edit those bonds, or enhance that trigonometric effect? Okay, and then we have electrochemistry and the standard model of physics. So what does that look like? Being able to talk about editing the hydrogen core, not needing high powered instruments to do nuclear fission or fusion, being able to work in the spiral valence, invoking something called electro shielding with your device that's running off of electrochemistry, like your computer's running off the computer, the internet, and electricity. You can use computational forces of several computers in a configuration to produce an electrochemistry charge that will then go ahead and work in the standard model and work in a quantization space where you don't need nuclear fission, you don't need all these reactors, you don't need all these chemicals. And this is like something that a lot of people are looking to get their hands on for their own like financial gain in having a business. And this is why, unfortunately, they put out a block list in tech because of what people were doing. So I have been contacted by a few people. I want to say shout out to Mark Glasser, Department of Homeland Security, Director of Chemical Safety. He reached out to me. He knows a lot about my work. I was reached out to from Forbes CTO Council, a man named Gerard Bashar. Excuse me if I kind of butchered your name there, but he's involved with the United Nations Cybersecurity Council because of some of the floating point work that I've done. So there's like people that have poked their head in, to try to show like, hey, we're watching this and we want to work with you, but we know that there was a lot of people that had their own personal interest in wanting to take this work and privatize it. So what I just did was I just hand wrote everything. So I have all the work ready, and when we're ready to go, basically what can happen is, oh, sorry. So one of the things that can go ahead and basically happen here is like Public Utilities Commission, District 10 Air Quality Board, they can get their own language library. They can from us and they can get the IDE that we run. And then from there, they can go ahead and like run the technology on their own. And that's like the great thing about like this tool. We can go ahead and make language libraries for virtually anything, which is like the great thing. So we don't have to answer the C++ Foundation. We don't have to actually answer the IEEE, but we want to actually help them with like some of their standards because you guys know that IEEE has like the 754 statutes for trigonometric floating points and how floating points can go ahead and destabilize the electrical grid, which we've seen them doing with crypto. So we actually want to work with the government. It's actually funny that we don't want to like this is not for profiteering. We want to give governments, community organizations their own language libraries to like run their own systems to clean up water, clean up pool lagoons from factory farms, clean up chemical spills, clean up bad air quality. This is something that everyone can use and it takes like minimal energy. It's amazing. So talking about physics forces, so centrifugal forces, aka rotational forces, how we can use that to edit your CPU so you don't have to buy dozens and dozens and dozens of computers and memory extenders. You can edit the memory configuration of your computer. And then from there, you can actually extend the memory capacity and extend the power of the compiler force. So how much electricity is being put out for when you're like doing your computations. And from there, you can edit like your entire OS experience and edit the entire experience of your, environmental tech, right? So playing in physics forces, looking at acceleration forces for particles using sound. One of the things that I'm going to show you is how we're using sound to run network programming internet. And then working with topics such as luminescence, radioactivity, and VSEPR in some of the minerals that we're working with, because we do something really cool with gemology that I want to show you. I actually broke the internet literally a few times with some of these frequencies that I've made. So let's keep on going. So some of the tech solutions that we have are a quantization platform where you can basically type up, I want to affect the water at this specific address or affect this specific water supply that's going to these specific neighborhoods or housing sites. And with the quantization, you can go ahead and get into a deeper database of the water, of the soil, of the air, going into the standard model, and you can go ahead and edit that those compounds and then actually in real time see it on your computer through the spiral valence, right? So working with electrochemistry, that's like editing baud rates. So the baud rate is like the speed at which the Ethernet like flows into the computer. So we can edit baud rates, we can edit your CPU, we can adjust your Ethereum ports, your radio frequency file configuration, and then you can have a better output function in the quantization field. You can edit chemicals from your computer. You can go ahead and type up a quantity of chemicals. Like let's say you have a bag of this specific chemical. We can go ahead and type that up. And then in the quantization place, you can go ahead and shut off the valence or turn on the valence and activate the chemical or turn off the chemical, activate its potency, also edit its ability to have reactions. You can even edit how it will go through a reaction. So instead of getting like pink in my titration at this point in the reaction, I can edit it so I can get it a little bit later. And then I know for a fact I got this compound out of my mixture and out of my reactions. Okay. So also NFC chips. We can use NFC chips. You can attach it to beakers that you're using, or you can attach it, put NFC chips inside of a water tank, and then of course have that tank be have that NFC chip projecting specific electrochemistry frequencies to clean the water, and this has worked. The crystallography, we've really seen this work for health. So the crystallography is basically taking specific gemstones that have a specific separate configuration, a specific rate of luminescence, and a specific rate of radioactivity, and then editing that a little bit, performing frequency modulation and digital signal processing, and then going ahead and using those files to run internet, to run water quality, to run air clearing. So even at the end of the day, outside of the quantization and the electrochemistry, the crystallography exists there. And this is actually something, I have to just say this. They turned off my ability to copy my work. I had a copyright account and they turned it off. Like I can't like upload my documents and things like that because I was copywriting my work. So I just took everything off my computer and just poor man's copyright until like they stop. I even like went through Bowker because I've written several books and they provide 8 ISBNs on top of like a ISBNs on top of what is this called? Copyrights certificates for your work, and they wouldn't even help me. It was like a wide scale thing where people were trying to steal my work. They were harassing me, and then when it went to like the next level, they were trying to get law enforcement involved. A small group of decertified officers, things like that, white supremacist officers that were harassing me, telling me that I'm crazy, telling me that, well, I don't have a background in biology and physics, so your work must be fake, or are you sure that this is your work, or that I was using AI generators. And the funny thing is, like for a lot of the concepts like spiral chemistry, it didn't exist online until I said something about it. So this is like a very interesting thing where Black and Brown people, of course, we've been the vanguards. Of course, we've been like the main scientists. We've been the lead, and then they work off of our work or they try to disenfranchise us, and it's very unfortunate. So that's just one of the things like why it delayed this work coming out, because we needed to get in front of the community to show them the value of this platform. And then like a floating point system that we have where we can create specific grids. We can utilize specific floating points from performing specific functions on existing databases of ephemeris, of radix, and other astronomical like configurations. And it's like super funny. Like I just like to like kind of like use this as like an example. But one of the things that's like funny is that my birthday is 8/13, and I'm a Leo, yes, but in the constellation of Leo, I have a star, and it's Regulus. And I just wanted to kind of like show you how like interesting this was, because this like started something at the FBI, Regulus. So this is one of the things that like started that. The magnitude of Regulus was my birthday, and I was like so into Benjamin Banneker and Harriet Tubman and going on ancestral adventures. Like I would go down there to their place, like, oh, what plants are here, this and that, putting out like videos for the community. Like, hi guys, I traveled here. There's great messages. We're gonna do great in our community. We gonna be all right, right? And it like went so far. Kendrick Lamar and different celebrities, they got pulled into it. They gave me my props, so shout out to them. So um yeah, my birthday, and then it was like hilarious about this. So you can actually use like existing components, right, and then you can put them into trigonometric uh configurations and equations, and then from there you can activate a specific Higgs space, right, like a portal space, and you can access a quantization space, and from there you have full range of access to logarithms, floating points within that database of the star that you're working with, or planet, or constellation. And then from there, you can go ahead and activate internet frequencies and whatnot. So you don't need to like throw satellites in the air. And it's so crazy, like that this is where, you know, Benjamin Banneker and Harriet Tubman, this is like where their work was like leading. So like I just rely on the almanac, and I use like some of the old configurations, that calculations that he already did, because he's so accurate. And I use that for my computer, and I use that for like the work that I did. And it was so funny. I have like this video. It's called Mercury Wars. I was doing like configurations with the planet Mercury, because that's like where they like host a lot of satellites. If you like can go look at like different maps where they have a lot of different satellites clustered. And I was doing that to kind of stop like the harmful EMF from like coming into my computer through radio, through internet frequency. And it was so funny. I was recording this, and my computer was like shutting down, uh, breaking, and it completely closed. My computer completely shut down. Did a factory reset, reopened and it had an error code from space in my computer. It was so cool. It was like so out of control. And that's like how it started. So we have proof that our solutions work. I've seen this firsthand, but there's also like tools that we can like use. Like you can do like after quality testing, like we can now test the water for like the rate of bacteria. This can also work too for editing bacteria. There's like a huge bacterial growth issue where basically there's like antibacterial resistance because there's something going on with the frequency modulation tool that's changing, you know, the genetics of bacteria rapidly and allowing them to be resistant to antibiotics and things like that. But our system can actually like handle that, and we've done like a lot of that work mainly around cyanobacteria. That was like one of my pet projects, like going through the different like cyanobacteria outbreaks and trying to like rectify those. So even though the water may it may seem like there's like a dense population there, they're not producing this specific chemical to give the water that greenish like color, right? It's like a little bit more like bluer, different things like that. So it depends on what bacteria you're using, of course, and then the chemical you're trying to clean out of the water, and then from there, you will then identify like what laboratory tests like you're gonna run, right? So quantization. So quantization, right, is the stratification of an object or a force or an element or a compound. So let's just focus on elements and compounds here. So let's say, for instance, like just to give you this diagram, we have an element or a compound. So not all water is of the same quality or of the same frequency or of the same radial probability distribution or the same ionic charge. And this is like public pools of water, not bottled water. So for quantization, that would look like these waters exist in different space-time continuums, and in their spiral valence they respond to different systems, they respond to different physics, and then they produce different effects in the material environment. So quantization looks like the ability to create a tensor space, like, oh, I can throw up a trigonometric effect, and then I can go ahead and edit this chemical or edit this bacteria in another database. I can edit the DNA of a bacteria from the specific mother server that it's on, right? So when bacteria go ahead and they diverge from like the original server, what are they saying? That my DNA has changed from the original group. I'm on a different server. We can access those servers. They exist in the space-time continuum. So there's pathogens and diseases that exist out in space on different planets. What's stopping them from being able to then work with or create junctions with their younger brother or sister, right, or even cousin that's on the specific server, and then natharizing? So this is like some of the stuff that we're seeing in the laboratory that they like can't really explain, and it's because of what happened with the aforementioned like effects that are happening in environmental health. So quantization, we can change heat, quantization in a heat space. So you can edit heat, you can actually edit electricity, the mantissa and the logarithm of heat and the logarithm of electricity. And by performing specific calculations, or by as the electricity is coming in, you can go ahead and set up the circuitry, or you can set up specific algorithms to ensure that the electricity carries with it a certain like output, right? So also too, pressure. So that looks like being able to add other quantization forces like onto pressure, like where the pressure can then like bring in specific trigonometric effects, right? So these are like some of the quantization forces that we're using to go ahead and like edit chemicals and compounds, water, our bodies, etc. And then a particle acceleration. So these are some of the things that we can like do with quantization, right? And what does that look like, particle acceleration? So that looks like speeding up a particle, um, forcing a particle to multiply, reducing the potency of a particle. So this looks like also speeding up radioactive decay. So from alpha and beta particles, taking it to a zeta. So that looks like actually going into the quantization space of the radiation itself and editing it, which we've done. So this is an example of quantization, just like this like little diagram that I had here for you to understand, like, okay, you can edit it in a different space. And this is like where we get certain psychedelics that are no longer potent. They got turned off in their quantization space. It grows, the flower is beautiful, the herb is beautiful, but it doesn't work. And this, the biggest way that we saw this work is through perfume. Perfume, it's completely done the perfume market. I'm so into it. One of the tools that I'm trying to build right now is a certain tool where you can go on and type in a perfume, and then it will go ahead and scan for the logarithm and the quantization of other flowers that carry like the logarithm of those same chemicals, because they would exist on in a specific a certain space-time continuum. They would be in the same server databases, right? So, and because they share similar qualities and whatnot, you can go into other databases, other quantization databases to pull out their similarities in the logarithms there, and be able to have a platform where you can search that. The perfume was turned off. It's completely done. You get some of my favorites, Narciso Rodriguez, sorry, Narciso, whatnot. It's turned off. Tom Ford, it's turned off. A lot of people stop making perfume because it's turned off. The flower has turned herself off in the quantization space. I'll still grow, but you won't get my scent. Yeah, so it's a lot going on. So we have spiral chemistry, and then I have some like demos that I wanted to do in between. So what is spiral chemistry, right? So spiral chemistry says like, okay, I have like a spiral of I have a molecule of like sodium or gold or whatnot. Instead of using it in its circular form, where each electron is like considered to have just incepted itself here, and it does then influence the next shell in the valence, but it's in circular form. What's in between? What forces of physics are in between, actually making sure that this maintains a certain electromagnetic force, a certain cohesion factor, etc. And that can also that each shell can also carry, electrons, and that those electrons will be able to go through their said reactions. So we don't look at the compound as like a shell. We look at it as a spiral. And if we look at it from a spiral, we know that spirals exist on servers. So within this space-time continuum, the spiral can go up to 8, and then it's supposed to stop. But we've seen that that's not true based on what we've seen with quantization, what we've seen with chemical resistance, what we've seen as well with bacterial resistance, some things that work here. So what we're saying here is that we can edit a chemical by focusing on its spiral valence. So then we can perform certain acts such as electron shielding, where we can throw all the electrons towards the middle, towards the nucleus. It will then go ahead and trigger a fusion reaction where the hydrogen core opens up. And then because she is on a server with all the other noble gases, she can go into her cousin, Krypton, her mom, Xenon, her uncle, Radon, and then that's at the core, but it changes up the compound and the ability of the compound, right? Sorry, changes up the element and the ability of the element to form and make other compounds. So electron shielding, and this is like where people spend like thousands of dollars on like heavy equipment to produce these effects, and they're destroying and shattering the environment. Oh, okay. So now Avogadro's constant and the octet rule. So the octet rule looks like, thank you. So Avogadro's and the octet rule. So Avogadro's constant states that for each like molecule of sodium or hydrogen or whatnot, it has like a specific molar mass. There's a specific number of moles, and that within this space-time continuum, the amount of moles is like at a set constant. But because of what we saw with fentanyl, and because of what we've seen in material science, we know that that is not true. And because of what we've seen in biochemistry with certain groups of people having certain biochemical pathways, we know that that is not true. Right. So one of the things that we're looking at here is we have PFAs, right? And we're seeing a lot that's going on with like air travel and satellite interception and forces of physics changing or constants changing, and that needing to be discussed. So now I told you guys I put out this book on chemistry. And because of what was going on with like, plagiarism and needing more cybersecurity and more visibility for my work, the last thing is to put different equations that people are going to need to adjust their reactions, things like that. So I have like one of the original Lange's chemistry from like the 1930s. I love that book. It's amazing. That's like one of the manuals that we're going to be going into to like edit some of the original like equations, things like that, because of what happened in mass. So, the planet is very delicate, and she spoke, and she said that she didn't want all that going on. It was impacting her. So we can go into the database and we can edit how many moles this compound will carry. We can edit the electron configuration, but will it still be the same compound? Because remember, they're still under the same law. So you can't like take like maybe carbon and then say I could take carbon and turn it into like a compound that's like likened onto like cocaine or like likened onto like gold. She would have to be within a specific family. The hydrogen core would be have to be of a specific like noble gas, et cetera, et cetera. And then also to remember that her functions are programmed further in the standard model, which is where we get to go play. So in the light spectrum, so at the end of the day, folks are finding out like, oh, all chemicals are just configurations of different light particles, and those light particles are like amongst the same like color. So from like three colors, you get like all other colors, and then from there, you get electrons, neutrons, quarks, Besson strings, leptons, or whatnot. So an electron, you can have an electron, but an electron has like smaller components, and we can go into that database and work from there, and then influence the chemical all the way up. This would mainly be for like closing, like shutting down the spiral valence of a chemical so it's non-reactive, or opening up a spiral valence of a chemical so it's reactive. Okay, and this actually started a huge fight with land grabs and farm robberies, with chemicals being active and chemicals not being phytochemicals being active and not active in certain crops, and that actually being tied to certain geopolitical issues that were very out of control. Yeah. So like this is like an example of the IDE that we're gonna like give people and put out. It's like not fancy schmancy. It's just like the fact that it's like has specific backdrop because of the electrical language. And then like this is just like a little example, but this is something like where you can like run this IDE and you can type in a certain component of your operating system or your hardware and then go ahead and edit it, because you know that there's like real chemicals like in the capacitors, things like that. Edit its frequency modulation, edit its logarithm, edit your CPU. That's where cybersecurity is going. Like, if can you upload a chemical to your CPU through floating points or through a grid and like edit that? And yeah, you can. Can you use sound frequencies and have the sound frequency be edited or converted into a different digital signal? And can that edit the rotation of your CPU? Yes, it can. Okay, thank you. So we've already seen that our system works. We've been using it. And that's just about it. So now it's just for the community to be able to get an IDE where you can have your like developers, the young people in workforce development programs sitting there and like editing bodies of water, and they can see in real time the different like spiral valences that are there. They can detect those, how they're reactive or non-reactive, and how they're responding to a logarithm that's thrown at it, and the kickback that that logarithm throws out back at you. So these are some of the things that we are doing. So electrochemistry. So we talked about this, like editing current functions of your device. So editing the CPU, editing the metal. Um, just to kind of go back here, editing the shell and spiral valence of the metal that makes your CPU. We can do that. And this is like what we've been doing for like huge investigations into child pornography and wiretapping. Is we've been teaching people how to use a specific chemistry system to lock a CPU or to shatter a CPU or to destabilize a CPU to break an encryption to allow the feds or investigators into their devices so that they can go ahead and see what they're doing. And we crack several cases just like that. So that's what we want to use our work for, and then for people to be able to heighten their cybersecurity. And I have so many other tools here for folks, a cryptocurrency tool that we can build for the community that's based off of like closing chemicals or doing certain conversions that's not harmful to the electrical grid. We have all of it that we can do. It's just a community getting together to say that it belongs to the community and not the hands of a few white families that want to use this for destruction, actually, to fill certain water supplies with chemicals, to fill the air with certain chemicals. That's not what it's for, and it won't do it. So chemical logarithms. using specific chemical logarithms to edit electrochemistry, and then to edit output to like then preserve the grid, because then we can work in the quantization space and then the standard model to then edit the electron configuration, protons and neutrons, and to have a better experience with our operating system or our computations or the quality tools that we're going to be using, like air quality tools, sensors, water quality tools, things like that. And then using electrical modulation to, and I have like a specific tool where I take a certain like I can take different sound frequencies and crystal frequencies. Like now, one of the things with crystal frequencies is activating them. So I can take a crystal and convert it to like raw sound and raw liquid form and to digital form, but then it's performing the frequency modulation on that to actually open up the crystal so that you can actually like use her hardness, use like her radioactivity, and use her functions, right? That's like the big thing. Like, can you do that? And I was able to do that. And that's where like a lot of this came from. So frequency modulation. So being able to like really work with existing frequencies, like I talked about sound, chemicals, logarithms, whatnot, and like network programming and edit your computer and whatnot, and circuitry. That's like the ins and out gates that allow like your lights to turn on or off, or that automates processes like when the water comes in here, all these different circuit gates check for this specific logarithm, if, meaning that there's a certain chemical in the water producing this electrical impulse. And then from there, it will project this specific frequency. And then when that logarithm hits a specific point, it will turn on these circuit gates, et cetera, et cetera. So we have certain tools like that where we can help you with like designing specific circuitry or designing algorithms for whatever you're trying to clean up, abate, or monitor. So this is like what tools people are looking for, and we have those. So crystallography. So oh, I'm so sorry about this. Because I downloaded one version and I have another version, so I opened like the wrong version of this. Because it was on my Canva first, you guys, so I can like do my visual editing. But for the crystallography, and you see the nuclear signal, that is actually increasing the radioactivity within a crystal frequency, or basically configuring XYZ files of chemicals that we can then run on your ETH port or run in WPP or KSS file formats. And there you have internet, right? Changing the luminescence of a crystal to be able to use the RGB light and standard particle model of the crystal to then like kick up a specific electron configuration or charge into like your ETH port or into like your optical wiring, and then you have a different like type of internet experience. And this is one of the things that they tried to build something called Arduino like off my work, but then they also then got on my computer and tried to then take my work and turn it into this, and they called it like Daisy C++. So just know that this is like my work. People were getting on my computer and doing this, and it's causing like a lot of like backlash. Okay, so there's crystallography, right, where you can like model chemicals, but this one is crystallography, like the conversion of crystal into like written and digital format. So floating points, because I have an activity for you all. So utilize floating points in trigonometric BCD and chemical logarithm format to edit existing logarithms of air, water supply, or bacterial contaminations, oil leaks, etc. So what we can do is like, oh, you can edit the logarithm of a chemical by influencing it with a different logarithm, which we know. But you can use electrochemistry in the computer to output to that grid without needing to have like a sensor or an NFC chip or devices, by accessing the quantization field of the grid itself. Exactly. So the longitudinal, latitudinal lines, like I can kind of give you a demo here, something that I've done on my computer. Um, I can show you like Google Earth. And then from like Google Earth, I can go ahead and show you All right, so let's look at this. All right, so we have a map of San Francisco, right? So we have the grid here, the latitudinal line. Sorry, I believe it's latitude, longitude, or latitude by longitude, excuse me. Um, 37.75557577, and then negative 122.4376. So these right here are logarithms and floating points. So we can go ahead, and because now we can access we can put this into a trigonometric configuration and then open a portal on the existing grid. So this is just the digital grid, right? Now, how would you project a frequency at a digital grid and like get to real air? I would go ahead and open up an array or a 3D a matrix, something that they call a tensor space over San Francisco using these coordinates. And I can show you this. This is a document that I had on here on my computer for arrays. Just open up my code file and go ahead and show you all this. So I have a demo that I want to do. So we can go ahead and start the demo now. So I have a bunch of documents in here. Just please excuse me. I have funny names for some of my files. So I'm going to show you how this works. So we can access the quantization space using a specific computer coding language that um, is an electrical language and supersedes C++. I use this a lot on for encrypting my brainwaves because of the virtual reality neuromonitoring technology, just uploading logarithms. So just to kind of give you an example, we would treat these coordinates as a file. We can turn this actually into a file. So then that file is a certain amount of memory. Now, that file can be a master file, and we can extend the memory of that file. And then you can then load specific coordinates in binary format, which is like pure electrical signaling, electrical signal processing. And then that goes directly into the quantization space of the grid. Now, we're talking about the meridian field of the planet. That grid, we know it can be impacted by chemicals and impact GPS, GIS, all of that. There's a lot of money that goes into trying to keep that grid clear or trying to have heightened cybersecurity tools or defense tools to be able to access that grid and not have it blocked, to block their mapping tools and things like that and imaging tools. We can go into the standard particle model of the grid itself because it's made from a certain substance and has a certain EMF that it's working with. And because it has a certain set coordinate, it in its way is like um, a cube over the planet. So we can go into that grid and then go ahead and project frequencies and like edit like all of that. And that will just be it. Um, right. So that's just like one of the things that we did and just wanted to show you like how we would formulate that into a file. Then I'm going to pull up this document here. Okay. So anyways, on top of the brainwave encryption that I use like for health and then network programming for the grid, the biggest thing too is closing off the valence of certain chemicals. So this is where though we rely on like existing air quality data to see exactly like what's currently like in the sky being blasted, so we know exactly what logarithms to like point at them. So now, can we create reactions in the sky based off different logarithms? No, because it's actually very intentional. And in the quantization space, it's very intentional. So we project a specific logarithm. Let's say we project something to stop like a radioactive like technology. We can project a specific chemical configuration, like you're going to see here in the "We're at Your Door" document. right? So using like C++, we will be able to like, create an array, a matrix, and this one was for the Amazon. You would create an array or a matrix, and from there, we have like a specific portal over that area. Then you can stream specific frequencies, chemical formats, sound files, etc., into that space, and then it works in the standard model, and then kicks up into the electron configuration, into the proton, neutrons and nucleus, and then into the entire radial probability distribution of the spiral valence or shell valence, and into the entire element or compound. And this is like one of the things that we were using to stop different like bad reactions, clear out like smoke from air, all of that type of good stuff, and turn off the different chemicals that were blasted into the sky that created Carl the Fog. So some of you guys know of Carl the Fog in San Francisco. It's actually like a big cloud of chemicals that formulated because of the separ and the frequency modulation, so that individuals can upload, city staffers, whatnot, try to get jobs, try to hide what they were doing in our community with wiretapping or the technology, and created an environmental catastrophe that's creating a lot of destabilizations. So would it be like that simple? Now, one of the things here is like you would of course have like a configuration of how many bits or how much memory a string takes up, how much memory an integer should take up, how much memory a floating point should take up. You can edit some of those things when you create your original like C++ or Python like shell, like when you create like your program from like the very beginning. You can edit some of those things in script. Now, one of the things that you can also do that I'm going to show you here is you can go ahead and edit your memory configuration. So one of the things that we have too is like a language library for editing the assembly language of any device. So we have like 6 different types of RISC architecture that we developed, but we don't put it out because people want to use it for like tapping people's devices, being able to put this certain type of like memory architecture to create like a free form hole in the memory configuration, and then go ahead from there and upload all kinds of like software hacking tools to people's devices, which they did with the original RISC architecture. And because of our work, that Intel, AMD, they shut down their CPU x86 initiative because a lot of it was based off of our work and the fight that we put out to make sure the community gets this. So we talk about AI. A lot of AI models are impossible without having a certain type of electrochemistry baud rate. And then also to running a specific coding language that can then promote automation, and that can then actually have run large language models. So I have like a syntax file on my desktop of like 43 different language libraries, and they were on my computer like playing, but there's like several dozens more. And I only did that so that the feds can track what companies, what politicians with their families and friends were on my computer, for a huge wave of people that are finding out that they're getting removed from office. They're actually going to be incarcerated, brought in for psychological evaluations, and fined and charged, and having their assets seized for what they did to stall this work and create several environmental catastrophes, chemical waste and whatnot, outbreaks and recalls in between, trying to mimic this work, and not having full information. So this is just like one of the examples. Like we would go ahead and start with just editing the basic memory of a device. You can get a new device if you wanted to test this. We can even use Chromebooks, go ahead and edit some of the registers, and then have a better operating system where we can run faster baud rates. And then from running faster baud rates, we can run higher output, run better ETH port programming, and have a better CPU experience that will allow us to run different hyperdimensional like languages and language libraries that allow us to do different things. Like I can go on the internet and search like any perfume through its logarithm, that's crazy because there is a specific space that exists in the space-time continuum because all these different chemicals are on servers and we can access that database and quantify them and put them on the computer for you all to see. Now, let's say, for instance, you want to see who was buying certain chemicals. You want to see what certain chemicals were being blasted in the air at a certain time. We can actually use specific astronomical configurations of the mega planets. I'll show you which ones to do. And we can find out by doing trigonometric functions between different planets. We can then open up a logarithm that will then show us at that point in time when this transit was going, because you have a site that you can go look at the different transits back up until like 300, 400 years. At this time, who was running these specific logarithms, or where were these, how were they being ran on the planet, right? What chemicals were being ran and in what reactions. So that's actually a really interesting thing that we can like get into. Okay. So we're talking about the assembly organization. Now, do we need to do this like off bat? One of the things here is like you would use our IDE, and it was this is already built into the IDE, so you don't have to like worry about that at all. But it's for people that want to like freeform and work in their like existing computer, like for like some of our like techie people, this is something that you can start using now. I do a lot of coding tutorials on this, so we're gonna keep like going into this. And remember, the CPU was like a metal is chemical, right? So we can go into the standard model again, edit the metalloid, her configuration, loosen her up to stop certain computations or stop a heavy metal or a bad chemical, or go ahead and accelerate her so we can have a better computational output experience. So that's just like the end of our presentation here. Um, I'm really excited about like what can happen with this. I'm really excited about what we can, do with this work. I am at like the Access uh, Center um, from like mainly every week. I got involved in one of the programs for like front end design. It was very helpful because I was more of a back end type of person. Didn't want to rely too much on AI to teach me how to do like front end and things like that, mainly for accessibility. Um, and then as well, like I teach online, and people from the Access program, they are on my channel and they are actively like engaging in my coding tutorials, and like it's helping them in their community, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and like invite you to join us, but we're gonna be doing this in person and doing certain demos. I believe that the demo that we're gonna have the most fun with is the crystallography, and I could just show you inside of my my Apple account for music because I play this on my desktop. So just gonna show you one. So I have different ones. I like this copper one. This is really for like editing like your CPU. Uh Now the great thing about this is these are really cool, but um remember it's a snapshot of the crystal, her specific space-time continuum, right? Her standard model. So it could eventually like run out. Yeah, so that's like one of the things here too. That's not a bad thing. It could eventually run out. So this is where like we go ahead and we make several of these like at a time. So like to effectively run like maybe a frequency modulation for cleaning up all the water in San Francisco, just having something like blasting there for sewage, sanitation, all of that, and wastewater because of what's getting into the drains with wastewater. That would be like maybe like 48 files for like 10 years. Each file will be like maybe 2 or 3 minutes. So I'm going to need helpers here, teaching them how to convert these tools. It's like very specific. So there is a chemical process into it. It's a process that I created, and like how people like go ahead and like they create advanced encryption tools and things like that. I have my own tools that I've created, so it's like something for you all to know. So I have like a bunch of these files that you can go ahead and take a peek and see. So several of them. So let me go ahead and just play one for you so you can see the power in it. Yeah. right. And so I don't want to play this too long, but I use this for frequency jamming and for cybersecurity. So like this also too is for like removing like heavy radiation particles from the energetic field. So this we can blast into the sky in San Francisco. People won't be hearing like a loud hum or anything like that. We can actually blast it from like one or two locations, and that would clean up air quality in San Francisco. So this is like one of the things that like we're going to be putting out in the community. I cannot wait. I'm so excited. So anyways, you guys, just to kind of like give you a sneak peek into like what we have going on here, I'm excited into breaking down each and every single one of these topics and like really getting into the nitty gritty of this, and then giving the organizations this platform to do their work, bring it to their young people, and we can go from there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Bye.